name is Brendan Nunez. Chris Watkins here in studio as well. What's going on, Chris? How you feeling, man?
Feeling good. Excited for the play-in action tomorrow. Try not to get too used to being in the play-in, but still exciting nonetheless.
Absolutely. And I think that we have Frankie Cardicelli here as well. Frank, what's
Howdy.
going on? How you doing?
Hey, there you go.
Hey guys. It's play-in season. Looking like the Eastern Conference is off to a roaring start there. I think it was a blowout last time I checked. But
Shaq just buried the Hawks during the halftime show.
Oh, good. Yeah,
he buried like a little mascot.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation.
Literally
right now.
buried.
Yeah, literally buried. Okay, well, there's a lot of conversation. I think Brendan, I saw you quote the tweet too about how you feel about the 9 or 10 game. Maybe people are believing that you're not deserving to be in a quote unquote postseason game, which is like another conversation. Is it quote unquote the postseason? It's not game 82. It's beyond game 82. So I think we can agree it is a quote unquote postseason game. Now it's not the playoffs, but I think tomorrow we're looking at a situation where there's going to be some juice in Golden Wand Center, hopefully. And the Kings looking to prove that although it's been a very tumultuous and chaotic season, they can, have a silver lining or two, but long way to go. I know that the Warriors play tonight, and we'll see how the cards lie with the Warriors or the Grizzlies and see who the Kings could, if they win, potentially face. But it's hard to not be a little, I don't want to say excited, but just kind of, hopefully going to be entertained tomorrow for a Kings playing game.
Absolutely. Anybody happening to be listening to the audio side, we do record this on Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. here on Sacktown Sports. Also available on all audio platforms for any podcast. Kings scheduled to take on the Dallas Mavericks in the first play-in game, I guess technically second, their first play-in game, the 9-10 matchup, and the winner of that will play the loser of the Golden State Warriors Memphis Grizzlies, who play today. Winner of that eventual game earns the right to play the Oklahoma City Thunder, who went 68-14 this year and had the best point differential of literally all time. So I guess that is a award or something that you earn the chance to play that dominant team.
Very Joe Mazzulla of you,
huh?
To say that it's a privilege and that you earned it.
It is. It's very. It is. Mazzulla. You earn the right to be critiqued and whatever it may have been.
That's right.
Maybe we can just have like the vague play-in conversation that Frankie you just kind of hinted at there first. I mentioned earlier, kind of a little bit on socials, taking the side of like I also think that. Like the 9-10 seed is really not. I struggle to view it as an accomplishment. And specifically, you look at it. I think this year is the most blatant one, right? Where previously, obviously, it only went to 8 teams, 9-10. There was no play-in. Well, we're in year 4 or 5 of this. It might even be longer. I always think it's less than it actually is.
I think it was the bubble. I think the bubble was kind of like the birth of the play-in, and that's when the Kings they had a run where they finished, I think 2 games or less outside of the 8 seed. Because if you go back and look at the standings, the Kings finished 9th, I think 3 or 2 years in a row when Jaeger was here. And I think the first couple of years of Luke, even they were right there. So I think the play-in started in that bubble year and the Kings finished, I think, a game out of 10th or something like that.
Yeah. And now they sit at 9th. They are 40-42, but they're 8 games behind the 8th seed, guys. Memphis finishes 48-34, tied with the 7 seed Warriors. You even have, the whole Western Conference from 3 to 8 ended up having 2 games between them. But again, 8 to 9, where the Kings sit at 9, 8 games difference. And again, I think this is one of the more blatant ones of, honestly, like the Kings and Mavericks were not playoff teams this year. And it's still TBD on if they will be playoff teams, right? The wording I like to use a lot is, sure, it's postseason, not playoffs. Yet you're in postseason games to try to qualify for the playoffs. But I don't know. Do you guys side at all of, they don't really quite deserve this? Or how do we feel about the play-in's existence now that it's been around for a handful of years here?
I think it's interesting. I think it's definitely kind of I think it's a better executed version of what the NBA is looking for with the NBA Cup, where it's definitely all in all meaningless games that they're trying to extract some value out of. And I think it's done that in the sense of, hey, like we're excited about, Wednesday and, just it being a one-off elimination game. I think there's some things that you can learn about your team. The fact that Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis had such big games last year in the play-in, I think is a positive sign of their development. It kind of matters more than just an individual regular season game. But ultimately, I think it's a completely different conversation. To your point, Brendan, of next week, we start to have the conversation of, if they make the playoffs, like then you're playing OKC, and it's not really a great light at the end of the rainbow. It's
Right.
not really a pot of gold. And so I think that's really where maybe time will start to kind of deteriorate at the play-in, where, you start to learn like, yeah, this is fun for the moment, but ultimately, it's a prize to kind of get slaughtered by the best team in the conference. And, hopefully it doesn't go that way, but ultimately I do think that that's just kind of the direction that it feels like. It's a nice temporary boost, but ultimately I don't know how much it means.
Yeah, where do you kind of side with all of that, Frank? Do you I mean, there is undeniably, I will say, like an entertainment value that this adds, as Chris was saying, not only to the games itself, but to the end of the season. Like, imagine how different the end of this Kings year would have been if the play-in did not exist.
Yeah, I mean, for example, one of the best games of the year so far, arguably, was that Clippers-Warriors game in Game 82, and that game doesn't matter at all if this isn't a thing. And I think one of the biggest problems with the NBA over the past 5-10 years, maybe even longer, is I think Draymond Green has a quote saying that there's like a different gear that players have in the regular season, that they aren't playing with that gear. They hit it when the playoffs take place, and that's kind of their season. I think that's the quote that Draymond said, like, our season begins in April. And I think that having the play-in kind of motivates those teams and encourages teams that maybe would be, originally in the position to tank. Like the Kings 5-10 years ago probably would be tanking at that point. After the deadline, they were, like you said, 8-9 games out of the 8 seed. There's no incentive to keep trying to win basketball games when you're that far out with 20 games to go. So I think from an entertainment standpoint and from a competition standpoint, it's been great for the league. And obviously pocketing the money from that TV deal, as far as having a couple extra postseason games, that can't hurt either on the NBA side. But from a fan perspective, I think for the Kings, and I know my family feels that way, they're happy they get to watch at least one more game of Kings basketball, because as annoying and frustrating as a year as it's been, and I think we've joked about it too, how we're ready for the offseason to begin and kind of see what happens. But, it's pretty fun to be out there at the arena on a Friday night, or tomorrow, I guess, is a Wednesday night. But, just be out there and kind of just be on the vibe and the atmosphere. It's going to be missed. So, well, if they make the playoffs, do you get to kind of sit here and chalk it up as, wow, the Kings are coming off a year? You can kind of compare it to 22-23, that's a completely different year. They were a top 3 seed that year. They really had, they were a very good team that year. They were not a good team this year. We can all agree that the Kings are not a very good team this year. But if you can go to the first round and compete, maybe not win it, but compete against one of the best teams in the league's history, you can move into an offseason where, different conversation, but doesn't seem like they're going to be punting or going to a full rebuild, which some people are calling for. It doesn't seem like that's the case. And if you want to see what pieces you have to build around and you can kind of move forward with going into a playoff series and kind of seeing what happens when a lot's on the line, that's the way to do it. So it starts tomorrow night, win or go home. And, hopefully it's a good atmosphere, and, record be damned. It is what it is at this point. It's the play-in game and someone's going home.
Yeah, I'm sure that the league has minimal regrets with the play-in. To your point, like it's upped the entertainment value. They now get to add even more games of postseason basketball, and Kings get a little bit of this revenue share from the game that they're going to get to host here, which I'm sure they're excited about. But you mentioned like it discourages teams from having a reason to tank towards the end of the year. I would honestly argue that it kind of is like baiting teams that should be tanking into thinking, oh no, like we still have a chance. This is something to play for.
Forces you to pick a direction.
It does.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I just think that sometimes maybe you shouldn't be like, hey, but if we can get that 10 spot,
right,
which is kind of the situation that the Kings found themselves sitting in here. And before we dive into that 9-10 matchup with Dallas, I want to go into that in the next segment. I kind of want to recap this season, this regular season as a whole. Obviously, it is still very TBD because a lot changes of how you feel about a year based on how it ends, right? And that's not just from a fan base perspective or us that cover it. Like, you see plenty of organizations honestly overreact to how their years end. So still very TBD, but I was on our buddies Matt George's pod the other day, and he asked me, what do you think you're going to remember most about this season, or how will this season be remembered? And very vague, again, TBD based on how this may end in the play-in, postseason, whatever it may be. But I was curious your guys' answer. Chris, what's your perspective on just what you will remember this season as, this regular season so far?
I mean, I don't even feel like the end result matters. This is the year that we traded De'Aaron Fox.
I think so,
and definitely Mike Brown gets thrown into that as well. But I mean, De'Aaron Fox was this franchise player for the past 7 years. And, the day he was drafted with the intent of him being the franchise player. And he carried that load on his shoulders through good and bad. And, the fact that he moves on in the middle of the season and it kind of ultimately defined the season, right? I mean, again, even the reason why De'Aaron left, we've chronicled it very well on this podcast. But, it's tied directly to the Mike Brown firing. And so I think ultimately that's just the defining moment of this season. It honestly doesn't matter if the Kings, even if let's live in complete, best case, if they go to the NBA finals, like this season's still going to be remembered as they went to the NBA finals after they traded De'Aaron Fox halfway through the season. So, to me, it's no doubt the defining moment.
Yeah. Same for you, Frank.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to agree with that, but I do think it's something we'll have to look back on in a couple of years and really kind of see the weight of it, because I think the Luka trade has really, and we've talked about this before, not to beat a dead horse, but the Luka trade has really just kind of, and now there's been some firings of head coaches. So like the Kings, believe me, that they really have kind of like burrowed themselves kind of into the pack of teams that have made head scratching moves this year, as far as the Luka trade, Michael Malone, the Grizzlies firing Taylor Jenkins, down the line. And I do feel like from the Kings perspective, though, from Fox was like, that was the big move. That was okay. If things go sour during this Beam team era, Fox is the player to be moved. Now, I don't think any of us thought in October that trade was going to happen, 4 months later, 5 months later. And I still think that the fact that they only negotiated with one team, they didn't canvass the league, they didn't try to reach out and see what the returns would be from other teams that could be interested, that might come back to hurt them, because they don't have that many. They got a couple draft picks, first rounders. We'll see what they do with that. Do they hang on to those? Do they move that in a bigger trade for another piece? But getting back Zach LaVine, who definitely is a very good NBA player, but is age 30 and, on a $50 million year contract with a player option for the year after next. So I feel like this is the year where we kind of will look back on and say, wow, they really just kind of took that Beam team, that core, and Mike Brown, De'Aaron Fox, HB the summer before, Kevin Huerter, ripped the Band-Aid off and kind of just tore it all down. And was it a knee-jerk reaction? Was it too soon? We'll see. I think so. But I think that we're going to have to see how the next couple of years unfold, because young assets and draft picks that's something that the Kings need, and they don't really have many right now. So we'll see how it all unfolds. But 2024-25 season will forever be the year they traded De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, and I just want to tie in something both of you guys said there. Like, Frank, you mentioned the Kings burrowing themselves into the middle of the pack, and then Brendan with the point of like, the discouraging to encourage going for the 10 seed. Like, it's really unfortunate, because that's the worst place you can be in sports, right? Is in the middle and not being one of the most elite teams that's actually competing for something, and not a team that has a clear direction of, we know what we're trying to do, and that's not be very good. And I think ultimately that's where, to maybe put a bow on everything. Like, I think in the offseason, we all just hope that this team figures out which side they want to go on. And I think we hope that side is more towards the youth movement. And I don't think that necessarily means you have to be worse. But to me, I think the worst part of this season has been that it feels like we're a little bit rudderless, a little directionless, and we're, as Frankie put it, like just in the middle. We've burrowed ourselves into whatever this current core is without there being much room for progression, which is, internal development is the whole reason we got here, right? Was because that's what they banked on. And it feels like now, if you're banking on internal development, there's really not much that you are banking on.
It's a lot different when you're a 10 seed with a reasonable, like still a very young team,
right,
to your point of the internal development of like Houston almost snuck into the play-in last year, and they had every reason to chase that, because they're like, okay, we already have our core, and like getting these guys experience is valuable. To be fair, Zach LaVine has one playoff experience he's playing a part in. It's not like getting him the experience isn't valuable, but a little bit different when you are talking about like what the ceiling of your group is. I had the same answer to you guys, by the way. It's easily the year that they traded De'Aaron Fox and fired Mike Brown, but I think the firing Mike Brown more so falls under the De'Aaron thing more than anything. Is it telling that we didn't even like come across or like mention the possibility of this being the start of the Doug Christie or Zach LaVine era? Or is that, to your point, Frank, if you're saying you need to see how this plays out before we can even say that, and more so moving on from the other guys is just the more fresh thing that's taken place?
I mean, a lot has to happen, has to go right, I guess, for that to become a thing. And it's funny because if tomorrow night goes south and they lose to the Mavericks, those conversations start immediately about Monty McNair, Doug Christie, this roster. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of have it in their heads right now, and that's, I'm sure we're going to talk about next, about the Kings having an upper hand against Dallas. I mean, this team has been so unpredictable. I think Doug even joked the other night. I think a reporter from Phoenix asked, how do you approach a game where a team is missing all of its best players? And Doug said, you must have missed the game where we played against Washington. and the Kings tomorrow, they're playing against Dallas without Kyrie Irving, and they still have players that can hurt you for sure. They more so have players that, obscure players that can hurt you, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. But a lot has to go right. If the Kings do, like Chris kind of talked about, if they go on a run, if they win both playing games, they take the Thunder to 5, but a couple of those games come down to the wire. I mean, does Doug kind of pencil his name, or I guess pen his name in as the head coach for the next couple of years? Maybe. I mean, we know how the front office and the ownership at least has felt about Doug, but I think it's going to take a lot. And also from a Zach LaVine standpoint, a guy who usually with Chicago was a guy that they leaned on for big games, and DeRozan as well. I mean, I should just say Bulls West. I mean, if the Kings can get Bulls West out of Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, maybe you can look into that core and say, what they look like next year with one more impact defender or a couple more bench pieces. They can retain Jake LaRavia. But I mean, it's a lot of what ifs right now, and a lot of no clear, signs of direction, because I don't know who we can look at right now and say that they will 100% be back, from the GM, head coach, or anybody on the roster. Who's there? There's no one that we can say that 100% this player will be back next year. I mean, maybe Keegan Murray, but at this point, everything's on the table, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously a lot riding on what ends up happening in their 9-10 play-in matchup coming up against the Dallas Mavericks. Also, could be remembered as the year that the Kings were NBA champions. Stockton, NBA G League champions.
Nice.
Maybe.
There we go. Okay. 209 stand up.
Exactly. Not the day, I will say, to dive into the intricacies of everything that went great with Stockton's year. But I'm sure that we will cover that in the future. They had a phenomenal season, and props to them. I would say just more so focusing on Sacramento right now as we're going to get to a break here. And on the other side, one other aspect I want to talk about with this season before we move into this matchup is, if this is DeMar DeRozan's only year that he played in Sacramento, how will that be remembered? Climbing the all-time scoring list, all-time player, came to Sacramento, was a huge free agent signing. How will that be remembered? And obviously very dependent on what happens in this 9-10 play-in matchup. So going to dive into that here on the other side. Return of the Roar live podcast here on Sacktown Sports 1140.
I'm Ken Korak with your Green and Gold Report, brought to you by Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Well, there's nothing more exciting for a team than to see the potential of a number one pick come to fruition. Now, we know it's early, it's just after 11 games, but Tyler Soderstrom from Turlock High was number 3 in the American League in batting at .381 and tied for first in homers with 6. And Jacob Wilson, number 4 in batting at .366.
Comcast Business is powering the engine of modern business with reliable connectivity, enhanced cybersecurity, advanced fiber solution, and Wi-Fi backup. Comcast Business helps turn today's small businesses into engines of modern business. For details on special offers, including free professional installation and up to a $500 Visa prepaid card on qualifying internet bundles, log on to business.comcast.com. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
What's going on, world? It's your boy Kevin Hart with some exciting news. I am coming to a city near you. My new tour is called Acting My Age, and I want to see you there. Come out, have a good night, a good time. It's all new material in a much, much more intimate setting. Go get your tickets and head to KevinHartNation.com now.
Comedy superstar Kevin Hart brings his new tour, Acting My Age, to the venue at Thunder Valley on Saturday, April 26th. Tickets on sale now at ThunderValleyResort.com and KevinHartNation.com.
The hot weather is coming. Is your HVAC system ready for it? Let Lee's Air Plumbing and Heating make sure it is. Get to Lee'sAirPlumbingandHeating.com. Check out their $99 HVAC tune-up special. And let me tell you why Lee's Air Plumbing and Heating is the way to go. They took care of me when our heater collapsed over the winter, and Lee's set us up with a great new HVAC system that is providing comfort, value, and quality. Let Lee's Air Plumbing and Heating take care of you. License number 635355.
It's a myth to think you don't play golf well enough to get fitted for golf clubs. The professionals at the Hagen Oaks Player Performance Studio would argue that playing the game with golf clubs properly fitted to your body and swing characteristics is the best way to improve your game and have more fun on the golf course. With a professional staff of fitters, all the major brands of equipment, and cutting-edge technology featuring TrackMan, the indoor-outdoor Hagen Oaks Player Performance Studio is worth a look. See for yourself, Fulton Avenue at the Cap City Freeway. Schedule your fitting at 916-808-2531, 808-2531.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies, because when people don't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, they can truly thrive, like Marta.
And now we'll hear from our class valedictorian, who with our hard work never ceases to amaze us. Please welcome Marta Moreno.
And Alex.
Hey, Alex, how did the interview go?
I did it. I got the job. I can't believe it.
I knew it. Let's meet up later to celebrate.
And Diego.
Mom, I got first place at the science fair with my volcano project.
That's amazing, sweetie. Congratulations.
Because when people are fed, futures are nourished, and everyone deserves to live a full life. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow. feedingamerica.org/actnow. A public service announcement brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
It's Carmichael Dave talking to you about my good friends at American Energy. You're in the Sacramento area. You know how the seasons work. They are a-changing right now. So American Energy wants to help you stay warm for the rest of the cold season, but help you stay cool during the warm season. Best way to do that, make sure your system is operating safely. So right now is the time to take advantage of half off a tune-up, $24.50. They cut that right in half. And if you want a diagnostic, guess what? You can't beat free. If it's free, it's me. And now it can be you. And also, it's the end of the season blowout. $4,000 off a new system plus any rebates. That $4,000, that's a direct drop from the sticker price. It's a great deal. Check them out at theaeway.com or an instant quote, or give them a call at 916-520-9990. That's 916-520-9990. Tell them your good buddy Carmichael Dave sent you.
Call 916-520-9990 now.
Daisy was abandoned by her family and placed in foster care at 15 years old. Her life was full of uncertainty. She thought she'd never have a permanent place to call home.
Before I was adopted, I felt like I wasn't enough. I had this hole in my heart, and I never knew what I needed to patch that hole. But when my mom asked to adopt me, that hole was closed. It feels so normal now to say that I'm a part of this family. I am surrounded by love. I feel safe. And that hole inside of me is gone. I am whole. I'm finally enough just as I am.
The Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption is changing the lives of teenagers at risk of aging out of foster care. Like Daisy, every child deserves a permanent, loving home. You can help. Learn more at davethomasfoundation.org.
Your home for Kings basketball for over 25 seasons.
Sacktown Sports.
Return of the Roar live Sacramento Kings podcast here on Sacktown Sports every Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Brendan Nunez, Frankie Cardicelli, Chris Watkins, all are joining you here. Before we dive into tomorrow's 9-10 matchup, just want to spend a tiny bit longer reflecting on what this regular season was as a whole. You saw the Kings offensive rating go from 13th last year to 9th this year, 14th in defensive rating last year to 22nd this year. Net rating was 16th last year, 15th this year, 40-42 record they end this season with, 10th in the Western Conference last year, 6 less wins than last year's 46-36 record that was good for 9th. And obviously DeMar DeRozan's first year as a member of the Sacramento Kings. I think there's a good chance this is his only year as a member of the Sacramento Kings. And I'm curious your guys' perspective on how that would be remembered if that was the case. Do you think the fan base will remain a level of appreciation for DeMar? This isn't in my mind, a Vince Carter where it's he is so admired still in Sacramento, even though he only spent a short time. I believe that was a couple of years rather than just the one. But is this Tony Parker on the Hornets situation? If this is DeRozan's only year as a member of the Sacramento Kings, he passed Jerry West and Reggie Miller on the all-time scoring list. He's top 25 now. How do you think DeMar's time in Sacramento would be remembered?
I mean, there's still time, I guess, to kind of establish a quote-unquote legacy if he has a big game tomorrow, or if they somehow, if he can, if DeMar DeRozan scores 32 tomorrow night and, 28 and they go to the playoffs in the first round, I think that we look back and remember a little more fondly. But at the same time, I think it's going to be another one of those cases where you see the jerseys around and you go, oh yeah, he played for them for a year. And that kind of is what, Zach Randolph, George Hill, Vince Carter, I think, like you said, a little more, beloved because he's a Hall of Famer. And I think DeRozan is in that regard, in that neighborhood too. But I think it really can. The book's still open, but like you said, Brendan, it's closing pretty quickly here, and it wouldn't be surprising to see the Kings move him just because of his contract and whatnot. But I think it'll be remembered that from a guy who did exactly what he did as advertised. I mean, he's someone who lives in the mid range and is a just pure bucket getter, and the numbers were decent. I think he averaged 22 points per game or 20 points per game. I mean, the shooting percentages were pretty good. I think he had a career high in 3-point field goal percentage. So seeing that was pretty interesting. And, the toe on the line threes probably hurt him a little more too. He could have had a couple more here and there. But I don't want to say fondly, but I think it'll be very neutral how people remember him. And, I was thinking even about earlier about scores the Kings have had. Rudy Gay was someone who played here for a couple of years. And I don't think Rudy Gay is even remembered fondly by Kings fans, which is the majority of Kings fans, at least. I mean, I know that some really enjoyed Rudy when he was here, but it's hard to really kind of, Isaiah Thomas is beloved here. Chris, I don't even know if anyone else is from the era we just had with the Kings. Fox is going to be beloved here for a long time,
right.
But I'm not sure how long that list is of players that played here. And from this era, the post, I guess, Rick Adelman, Chris Webber, Stojakovic Kings, how many are Dante Green? I mean, some players that aren't really at the tip of your tongue, but I feel like it'll be a very neutral kind of remembrance. And like I said, it'll be look in 5 years and say, wow, DeRozan, that's right, he played here for a year. That was interesting.
Right. Are we still going to see DeMar jerseys in Golden One a couple years from now, a handful of years from now?
Probably. I mean, let me finish with this. I think that he'll be remembered because he did choose to come here. It was probably the most money he was offered on the market. That's kind of like the Sacramento tax. Has to happen if you're going to come to Sacramento as a free agent. The biggest free agent signing. Shout out Severino. would have taken $40 million from the Mets. Took a franchise record from the A's to come here. I do think that the hype that surrounded that signing, though, as wow, like the Fox, Sabonis, DeRozan shirts that got printed, and just kind of like that. Wow, they replaced HB with DeRozan. They're really going to take off now, and they were playing pretty well for a minute. 1-7 in a row. Seemed like. When I went on paternity leave, they we joke about it, they were on top of the world. It seemed like for a minute, and then everything was different. But I do feel like he'll be remembered for that. The high hopes that coming off of the couple years the Kings had, they got someone like DeRozan, and did they fumble it? We'll find out in 24 hours or so, or I guess 70. Math was it 72 hours? I don't know.
I think you're about right.
Yeah, I don't know math.
Yeah, I think you're right, Frank. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be mainly a neutral thing. Not that it's gonna be none of it's gonna be negative, I would assume, in terms of the memory of it. But I don't think it's really gonna move people a ton. If anything, obviously, it's just gonna be like you said. I mean, he's top 25 scorer of all time. Somebody at that level. I think somewhere probably Frank used two perfect examples. Like Rudy Gay sounds right to me in terms of like the legacy of people remembering him, but it'll probably be somewhere between like that Rudy Gay and Vince Carter. Just because DeRozan does mean a lot. I mean, like, he was in the Not Like Us video the summer he comes to the Kings. Like, I think people in time will remember that and just think that's a cool little factoid. Like,
well, they won't let you forget. They play it every single time he's scored.
Yeah, that clip we might need to play more.
Nothing like us.
Yeah,
It needs to live a little bit longer. But like more so the point of DeMar DeRozan, kind of like Vince Carter, is like part of culture, if that makes sense. Like he's a big enough star to where he you could argue maybe he's on the fringe of it, but I think nonetheless he's definitely a household or can, at least for Sacramento terms, be a household name. And I feel like he's going to be remembered as a really great player who came here, but it's not going to be a lasting memory. And actually, funny enough, I think I was talking to both of you guys. I know I was talking to Chris Biederman about it. Of like, I feel like there could have been more. That's probably what I'm going to remember most for DeMar is just, I wish the season went better. I wish, honestly, the thing that I talked to you guys about is I wish I knew more about how he spent his season. Maybe that'll come the summertime, but I don't really know, how DeMar, ingratiated himself to Sacramento. I don't feel like that story was really told at all. And I think that really could have done a lot of work in terms of like ingratiating him to the city. And that's been the thing that I feel like is really missing from his Sacramento legacy. Like there's so many, we've seen De'Aaron Fox, like even a guy like Harry Giles, Skal Labissiere, like those guys have made connections to the city by being authentic and just, being real and really being engaged in the community. And I'm not blaming DeMar or saying, bad on DeMar or anything. I'm just saying in terms of his lasting legacy here in Sacramento, I think that would have done a lot for him, to be able to come back here in 15 years and have a standing ovation at center court. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen right now.
Yeah, and I think there was more community work than what was necessarily made public, which I think is your point. It's just that there wasn't necessarily coverage on
100%.
it. His best game as a member of the Sacramento Kings, or what we should say his highest scoring game, came against the Dallas Mavericks in Dallas, an overtime win. You may remember a pretty nasty step through where he ends up hitting the game winner in overtime. Zach LaVine may have been wide open right next to him, but he made the shot. 42 points for DeMar DeRozan in that game against Dallas. The Kings went 0-3. Against the chaos that were the Dallas Mavericks this season. And it's weird circumstance.
Wait a minute. They went 3-0.
Sorry, 3-0. I said that backwards. 3-0.
I was like, wait, am I looking at it wrong? Are we going to a world of hurt for tomorrow or what?
No, you're right. You're right. Sorry, I said that backwards. They went 3-0. Doug Christie coached all the games. Mike Brown was not a head coach for any of these. De'Aaron Fox played in one of them not long after the Mike Brown firing. Zach LaVine played in the other two. Anthony Davis didn't play in any of these games. I want to say he's only played 8 games with the Mavericks all season. Well, since he's been traded there, obviously. And I believe that Kyrie only played in one of these as well. And that was the game where he went down with the injury that ended up ending his season. And also TBD on how he's going to be when it comes to the start of next year. But to the DeMar DeRozan conversation, his legacy in Sacramento could be very different if he comes out and has a 40 ball against the Dallas Mavericks. And it's an interesting conversation to me because their double big lineup, or just the size that Dallas has, obviously Anthony Davis playing the 4, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford. Chris, you're a big Daniel Gafford guy. That, I think, paired with poor perimeter defense that Dallas has, I think that the most ideal way you counter that is playing with pace. Right. And that plays into Zach LaVine's favor. But you get into a half court game. I think when you saw DeMar have that big game, it's like, okay, you probably can also get a lot of middies here. And I don't know if that makes me feel optimistic or worried, but I guess that the Kings have an aspect where they can play fast and there's something they can also go to in the half court here. As you try to get a gauge for this 9-10 matchup, I can't be the only one that's like, I have no clue what to expect from the Mavericks, right?
No idea. Yeah. I mean, I'm expecting Anthony Davis to be prominently featured, though to your point, I looked up, he's played 9 games since joining Dallas. Like, I don't know how much they're going to want to put on his shoulders since he doesn't really, I would assume, have much chemistry with a lot of his teammates. But he is their best player. You'd assume he's going to get a healthy diet. I think you mentioned it. I hope not to steal your point, Brendan, but like my biggest concern is, the smaller guys, the Najee Marshalls of the world. Like, are those going to be the guys that end up hurting the Kings? Like, I think that's going to be the thing that ultimately determines the game, right?
Jaden Hardy, former Kings
Jaden
pick.
Hardy, right? Like, Spencer Dinwiddie gets a lot of crap, especially online. But like that guy can have really big games. And, I'm not saying he's a big game player or anything like that, but I mean, Frankie, I don't even have to ask you how many times we've seen random guys who have no business having games that they end up having.
Each one more
goes
like the
Troy
Hall of
Daniels,
Fame. Troy
right?
Daniels. He traveled on that 3, by the way. That was the boogie game against the Champagne. No, and to your guys' point, like I think, and I'm not sure if you look at it the same way. I think we can kind of like pencil in AD for 30 points tomorrow, like 13 rebounds. Sure, that can kind of like you can put that in the corner and kind of like, no, that's maybe are probably going to happen. But it's the other players. And I'm looking at, I mean, one name that didn't get brought up was PJ Washington, who is really a Kings killer. I mean, he had his career high in Sacramento. He had 42 points, I think, a couple years ago. I think just this year, I'm pretty sure he scored 16 points in the first quarter in Sacramento. I think the Kings ended up winning that game, but he really seems like he's kind of like a mismatcher. Athleticism. There's not really anybody the Kings can kind of throw out there to counter. And I kind of wonder who Keegan Murray is going to be guarding to begin tomorrow night's game. Does he defend Dinwiddie? Do you throw him at PJ Washington, who, more size there? I mean, Keon Ellis, do you throw him on, Dinwiddie? It's just, that seems like the two guys you want to worry about the most are Spencer Dinwiddie and Anthony Davis. But PJ Washington, Jaden Hardy got hot against the Kings this year. The looming giant of last year's 0 of 10 performance. Klay Thompson, man, how fitting would it be back in the building, 9-10 game again, redemption. And even though the Kings last year, they ended the dynasty, they ended the old Warriors dynasty. If Klay gets the last laugh, man, that would be pretty unfortunate for the Kings. Even like, they finally win, but now that could be erased if Klay comes out tomorrow and scores 25 and goes, 7 of 9 from 3. Like that's going to be an issue. So, I'm looking at kind of AD is going to do what he does, and you don't have Kyrie Irving, who could be dangerous and someone who's capable of torching the Kings for a 40-piece. If you can contain the supporting cast and, keep AD from going absolutely nuclear, you're going to be in a good spot to win. I feel like like you mentioned, they don't really have the impact defenders to slow the Kings down. They are a poor, a poor perimeter defensive team. They allow teams to shoot 38% from 3 this year, and the Kings, when they shoot 38% from 3 or better this year, they're 21-8. That's a 72% winning percentage. So if you can get to that mark, which is like, rocket science, you play well, you're going to win, sure. But if you can knock down the threes, there's a very good chance you're going to beat this team tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Klay redeeming himself does feel like a very fitting story, but I think one thing I can bet on is he's going to get him up. If they're going to go in, maybe a little bit of a different question, but we will see how that all plays out. Going to dive more into this key play-in matchup that the Sacramento Kings have against the Dallas Mavericks on the other side. Keegan Murray and Zach LaVine at practice recently talked about the importance of rebounding and pace. Stay tuned to hear that on the other side here. Return of the Roar podcast on Sacktown Sports, 1140.
With 25 award-winning years in Northern California, Ashton & Price is your local injury law firm. Pro attorney tip: if a firm presents as local, but they're in LA, red flag. If your first consultation is not with a lawyer, big red flag. At Ashton & Price, your first consult is with a local attorney, and if serious injury prevents travel, a lawyer will come to you. Still not enough? George Washington's my uncle. At Ashton & Price, no red flags, just red, white, and blue.
Remember, for the best advice, don't think twice. Call Ashton & Price.
Progressive knows when you own a boat or RV, it's like you're automatically on vacation, even if you're actually a marriage counselor in the middle of couples therapy. But in your mind, you're camping in Acadia, puttering around Frenchman Bay. Your boat and RV are both protected. You're lobster drenched in butter and... Uh-oh, did your clients just notice you weren't listening? Quick, do the thing where you just repeat back exactly what they said, but as a question. They bought it. Now back to Maine, earning an automatic discount bundling your boat or RV with your home or auto. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Keeping your engines healthy means protecting them in season and out. Experts trust Stable to do that. And third-party testing confirms it. Stable is the industry leader in preventing fuel-related issues, no matter if you use it in your car, boat, or outdoor power equipment. In season or out, At every fill up or when you store, start with Stable.
Save $12,000 off MSRP on new 2025 Silverado 1500 LT at the Meta Chevy Silverado Supercenter after all rebates. And Meta Chevy still has one of the largest selections in the Sacramento area with $12,000 off new Silverado exclusively at the Meta Chevy Silverado Supercenter. Now that's big, huge. See them all at MetaChevy.com. Together, let's drive.
5 savings list trade in 2011 or newer. Not available with special financing, leasing, some other offers.
Made a great deal at Meta.
Mike Rowe here with a quick question. Is your concrete sinking? Whether it's your driveway, sidewalk, or patio, those uneven surfaces are not just ugly, they're dangerous. That's where Groundworks comes in. They use state-of-the-art concrete lifting solutions to prevent tripping hazards, and they're the best at what they do. Schedule your free inspection at groundworks.com/row. And while you're there, check out my latest dirty job. It's a good one.
Licensed in all states where work is performed. See website for details.
Hello, Sacramento. I'm Emran Pilati, owner of True Sports Cards and Collectible Store here in Rockland, California, and the host of the True Sports Cards Show that airs right here on Sacktown Sports 1140 every Saturday from 10 to 11 a.m., where we discuss the latest trends, hottest products, and deliver exclusive interviews with other industry leaders. And don't forget to visit our shop, True Sports Cards, at 6661 Stanford Ranch Road in Rockland and see what we have for all your sports card and memorabilia needs.
Your old HVAC system could be costing you a fortune in energy bills and repair bills. Right now, Sierra Pacific is offering deep discounts, saving homeowners thousands of dollars. Savings that won't be available later this year. But you must act fast. We have to fill openings in our schedule next week. This limited time offer is only available if you book your installation for next week. Don't wait until it's too late. Call Sierra Pacific and lock in your savings today.
Sierra Pacific Solar Heating and Air. The guys in the big red trucks.
The PGA club fitters at the Hagen Oaks Player Performance Studio know that golf should be fun. They also know that players of all abilities will hit the ball farther and straighter, play better golf, shoot lower scores, and have more fun if they get fitted before they purchase golf clubs. Hagen Oaks delivers the same technology and major brands used to fit PGA and LPGA professionals. See how the game can be even more fun. Hagen Oaks Player Performance Studio fittings are available 7 days a week. Make yours today by calling 916-808-2531. That's 808-2531.
When it comes to a gun suicide attempt, all it takes is a moment.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me, and I contemplated suicide. My grandson, I was going to have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
Store your guns, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo. Hear more safe stories at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million+ products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Live and local, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. Sacktown Sports.
Tyler Soderstrom hits his second bomb of the game, passing Aaron Judge for the league leader in home runs. You're listening to the Return of the Roar podcast. We're talking about the Sacramento Kings, but myself, Brendan Nunez, Chris Watkins, like to give our guy Frankie Cardicelli, Yankee fan, over here a little bit of a hard time. Tuning in. It's the White Sox. It's the White Sox.
Man,
But shout out
I'm all
Soderstrom.
for it. I'm all for it. The not called Sacramento A's, I'm all for them having some success, and they're beating the White Sox pretty bad right now. And Soderstrom, yeah, man. I mean, he's definitely locked in, man. He's definitely someone to keep an eye on for maybe a 40 piece. You know, the Giants could learn from him a thing or two. You know, Wilmer Flores, though. Wilmer Flores is on pace to maybe hit like 50 home runs right now, break that drought of 30 home run hitters in San Francisco. What is it, 20 years now? 21 years?
Yeah. You know, some people are saying that Jung-Hoo Lee is an MVP candidate as well.
Yeah. It's funny how much I was like venting to you at the game, how my phone rings off the hook when the Giants beat the Yankees. But I didn't hear a peep last year when they were marching to the World Series. Nothing. Not one thing from anybody. No one cares. And now it's like April. and I'm getting just dunked on. So yeah.
I'm sure you got hit up plenty after, what was it, game 6 with all the errors? Game 5?
Game 5. It should have gone 6.
Game 5.
But some people can't cover first base, and
yeah,
some people. But it's fine, man.
At least you're over it.
Oh, I'm totally over it. It's great. The Yankees with the World Series. Soto goes to Queens a month later. I mean, it literally, I don't know how much worse it can get from a 30-day period. That was like probably the worst 30-day period of Yankees fandom in my life. And I'm sure everyone out there that hates the Yankees is drinking the tears, and that's fine. Enjoy it.
I do have a really funny picture of Frankie. We're sitting out at left field at Sutter Health the other day when the Mets are in town, and it looks like he's just staring down Soto across the field.
Like Dylan Brooks from across the court.
Exactly.
That's because I was. Because
Right.
I was.
He was doing the Soto
Right.
shuffle on one Soto.
Yep,
I was.
absolutely.
Hate you. I miss you.
Well, hopefully the Sacramento Kings can do a little bit something else for you. And we'll see how they end up matching up in this play-in matchup they have against the Dallas Mavericks. Interesting stuff going on with the Mavericks, with Nico Harrison kind of hosting I guess I don't even know if hosting is the right word. Like he had a couple of their more regular media members in a meeting, get together, whatever you want to call it, an off the record conversation to continue to talk about the thing that they already talked about. And everybody is like, yeah, why did you trade Luka Doncic essentially? And not much coming out of that. But I'll say that whenever those things are happening, that probably means things are not going well. Like we've experienced a little bit of that. Actually, that happened this year, last year with the Kings, somebody on the Kings side as well. So it's not exactly, it's not uncommon, I'll say. But like I said, when it's happening, that probably means that your team is not in the best spot. And that's the reality of the Kings' opponents here as they've changed their entire roster throughout the course of this year, trading away a 25-year-old generational talent that's going to make All-NBA first team once again. And that's who the Kings are matching up against. Like we mentioned earlier, 3-0, but hard to gauge considering how much turnover has taken place with this team. At practice the other day, Keegan Murray was talking about the importance of rebounding and pushing the pace. Obviously, he's a guy where if we are talking about a double big lineup like expected for Dallas, is Keegan Murray going to be the one guarding Anthony Davis? Do you go Domantas Sabonis on AD and put Keegan on one of the other bigs? Kind of an interesting thing that a part of the equation that the Kings have to figure out here. But I thought that Keegan had some interesting comments on the things that he feels like they should focus on to counter the size that Dallas is dealing with. So here is Keegan from practice the other day.
You kind of evaluate Dallas. Obviously, they've had a lot of change over there, but what do you make of their current roster?
I mean, obviously they play a two-big lineup most of the time. They don't have a true point guard at this moment, but those guys have stepped up in that role, and they've beat some good teams, but they're a team that's dangerous and can play well at any moment. So we definitely have to be ready for them and whatever they bring.
And you being the four, you mentioned their two big lineup. Just kind of what challenges or what do you view as kind of the keys for yourself dealing with that size?
I mean, if we can rebound well, I think the game's just in our favor. If we can get the defense rebound and then push the ball in transition, I think we'll have a good chance of winning and scoring easy baskets that way. Because when they set up their half-court defense, they're tough. So
you just alluded to that. How key is pace of play going to be on Wednesday?
Yeah, I mean, we got to be better than what we have been this year. Just getting the ball up and down the court as fast as we can, try and get ourselves easy baskets, not try and play a half-court game. And if we fall into that, it'll be tough to beat them.
How are you feeling right now?
Definitely a key to keeping the Dallas Mavericks out of their half-court defense, obviously, with the size that they have. Funnily enough, I kind of tried to ask DeMar the same thing today, like dealing with the size and how do you counter that? And he started by saying rebounds, and then he just stopped talking for a sec. And he's like, wait, am I like telling you the game plan? I'm like, okay,
I also had that thought.
fair enough. You know, it's always a weird spot, I will say, for us of like, hey, I'm like curious about this, but I'm also not trying to just like expose you to the team you're up against. But thoughts on the idea of playing with pace, something that I think has been important for this Kings team all year long, but specifically in this matchup against Dallas.
I mean, yeah, it's something that they've needed to do all year long. It's something that's been preached for this team for as long as I can remember. I mean, I feel like even Dave Yeager used to preach, get the rebound and run out. And it was obviously when this team had De'Aaron Fox running the show, but I think with Zach LaVine, you can still do it. And much like you said before, Brendan, like with DeMar DeRozan and his ability in the half court, that's always going to be there. I think that's kind of the nice and the bad thing sometimes about the isolation ball is, if you're great at it, it's awesome, but you really should only go to it when you absolutely have to and when your main offense runs out. And I think the main offense should be, Doug talks about breaking down the clock all the time. Like they are trying to get that first 7 seconds or whatever it is. I think it's 8 seconds of the shot clock. They want to score in that first 8 seconds, knowing that if they get to the last 8 seconds of the shot clock, they can trust that DeMar DeRozan is one of the best in the NBA at that time in the clock. So, I think it's really important that they get as many easy buckets as possible, especially in these elimination games where guys can be really tight. As many layups as you can get, you don't have to worry about your shot being off or anything like that. You can get into a rhythm. I think that's huge.
Yeah, and I do think that with Malik Monk out, it's a little harder to be at the top pace you want to be at. And I think when you talk about the double big lineup that they have and, just the variety of bigs they have, I guess if you factor in PJ Washington, who's more athletic, but I wonder if that means that you move away from that potential Sabonis Valanciunas lineup that we saw in Dallas that one night where they were losing and the Kings went on a run, because I wonder that myself. Do they go to their own double big lineup if they're struggling on the glass or they're trying to get more physicality in the paint? I mean, the Valanciunas Sabonis lineup, I believe they went on a 8 or 9-0 run in the fourth quarter of that game in Dallas a month or so ago. So I would guess if they want to play with pace, you can't really do that, but that's why the matchups will be very intriguing to see who picks up who come, opening tip off. Who does Keegan guard? Like you mentioned, Brendan, does he use his athleticism and wingspan to guard? I don't want to say AD, but I don't know if you can feel confident putting Sabonis on AD. That's usually what ends up happening, but I don't know, man. It's going to be a very interesting situation to see who the Kings line up across tomorrow, but the Kings are the best when they're out and they're running the pace, and obviously De'Aaron Fox is a huge part of that, how they were successful doing that. But if it's not working, like you mentioned, slow it down. DeRozan can go to work, and that's a good thing sometimes and a bad thing other times, getting slowed down like that. But we'll see what the offense or the defense gives you tomorrow night at Golden One Center.
As long as when they're playing with pace, that does not include some crazy turnovers in the chaos of all of it, I think that they'll do okay. And to the double big lineup, I think that that's an interesting aspect of this. Like you mentioned, I believe that you're accurate with that it was that Dallas game where they played both of them and had a decent run. I kind of would say even just more so go opposite. Like I think that this is an area where you miss Jake LaRavia, a guy that is smaller but can play up, right, and has more size and physicality. Like don't play into their game in my mind, like fully lean into your own, make AD sprint up and down the floor, make these bigs do that, make them run through screens in your half court actions. Like pace is not just open court in the half court as well, making sure that you're sprinting around. Zach LaVine had a similar sentiment to Keegan Murray the other day at practice as well.
How much is playing with pace key for the next 2 games specifically, especially Dallas with their size?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to get in a half court battle with them, especially in the half court defense. We're going to have to run sets and things like that to make shots. But the easier we can make our lives with getting out, get easy baskets, if it's threes, free throws, layups, we will take that over.
Yeah, definitely sharing a similar sentiment. I'm sure that obviously these guys are getting the same coaching and messaging. So definitely seems like something that's going to be key headed into this game as we sort of start to wrap up on our end. I guess we'll just go predictions. Do you think that the Kings win this game? And obviously it's taking place today. As you're listening, you may already know what's going to happen between this Golden State and Memphis game. But do you think the Kings beat Dallas? And who is your preference that they play between Golden State and Memphis? We'll start with you, Chris.
Yeah, I think they take care of Dallas. I think there's definitely going to be some nail-biting moments. I think there's probably going to be a late third quarter run that makes it real close, and that makes us all wonder if everything's going to go bad. But I do think they pull it out, and I think I would rather face Memphis. Either one would be a road game. They are probably more comfortable in Golden State just because they've made that trip so many times, but I've made myself very clear that I don't want to see Steph Curry in a game, in an elimination game. Don't want to see what Jimmy Butler has.
Fair enough. Frank?
Yeah, and I know it's like, oh, guys talking Kings on the Kings partner station, Kings show, Kings podcast, picking the Kings. But I mean, really, this team has more talent right now. This team, they should win the game tomorrow. And if they don't, it's another letdown or another kind of disappointing aspect of a season that has overall been a disappointment. So, the one slight silver lining would be you win this game tomorrow night, and they should. And I think they will. And not an easy answer, easy choice, but the Kings have played Memphis pretty, better than they played Golden State this year. And as fun as it would be to go to Golden State and have the continuation of this Kings Warriors storyline, I don't think the Kings want the smoke this time. This Warriors team is a little different than the team they played earlier in the year.
Give me that storyline. I want to see it. I think they have a better chance against Memphis, but I'm all for the drama. I think that they definitely should beat the Mavericks. Honestly, I think that they just will want to win more than the Mavericks do. Mavericks are probably desperate to get into this postseason and put everything behind them. When your GM is having meetings with media the day before your play-in game, I'm willing to say it's over for you already.
on 3.
Got to say it. So I like the Kings' chances. Obviously, we'll see how Golden One shows up tomorrow, expecting a good atmosphere. And we will be here next Tuesday to recap everything that's gone on with these play-in matchups and potentially a first-round matchup against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Return of the Roar podcast every Tuesday, 6 to 7 p.m. here on Sacktown Sports 1140. For Brendan Nunez, Chris Watkins, Frankie Cardicelli, Anthony Lucas on the other side of the glass. Thanks to everybody for listening. Have a great rest of your day.
What's up? We're talking to Chad Hoblet of Hoblet Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram and Woodland.